big hello to all my subscribers, new viewers, and I don't know, returning viewers, I guess. So I decided to do something a little bit different today. We're going to be working a little bit with Lightroom. It's just a little bit of a trick I've been using quite lately. In terms of getting it all ready, we're just going to boot up our Lightroom. If you guys don't have Lightroom, you can actually get a Lightroom and Photoshop combo for about $13 Australian, or I think it's $14 Australian, which you get both programs monthly on a fee, or I believe you can pay, I think it's $110 a year for a yearly annual fee. Pretty much what we're going to do today is we're going to be looking at just lightly touching up a picture that you've maybe just gone out and taken down the road or something. You got a nice picture of a bridge that you want to, I don't know, you could have that kind of example. Okay, so let's start with our first photo. So these photos here were all taken of Sydney Vivid. There's a big festival in Sydney that occurs every year. So we're going to go ahead and touch up one of these pictures. Now these are the original pictures. We can see we can reset the picture here and nothing's changing. So let's go ahead and let's work with, say, this picture here. Not this one, this one. Now it's all on a tilt, so we're going to want to fix that up. We'll go into our cropping tool here, just fix that a bit. You don't want it to take too much off, because it does look great as it is, and that's exactly how the picture was shot. It was line up level, so we don't want to do too much of that. But I also like to make a perspective here of what we actually look at, so I might change that again to about there. But I like to have that kind of perspective. If a picture's too kind of square, it looks a bit out of proportion, and you want to kind of have it to your liking. Always before you take a picture, make sure that you have your perspective in mind before you take it. Sometimes I don't, for example, like this photo. So we're going to go ahead and crop it to make it exactly what we want. Now see, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good so far. But see this? You can see that our shadows have gone way over our little scale here, which you can see that obviously the shadows, there's some dark shadows around here, there's some shadows there, some shadows there. It kind of all, here we go, that's probably where it's coming from. But if we find a photo that's completely, I don't know, under, there we go, now you can see that. So this is the exact same photo that I've just been fiddling around with for no reason, but you can see here it's quite, look at the crop tool, you can see here all the obviously black and white, but you can see if I click that arrow, it'll show everything that's all the darkest parts of the picture there. But as you can see, that's in the blacks. So if I was to, for example, let's reset this image. Okay, now let's put it in black and white again, and let's take the exposure down so we can see what's going on. And now you can see these. Now if we were to adjust the blacks here, look at that. So it's slowly going away, so you're bringing up the blacks. Okay, first things first. Now, I'm assuming you're all familiar with temperatures, so let's just set our temperature to about, because this is shot at night. The sky is not red, it's not sunlight or sunset. So we want to give it a decent temperature. So I'd say about there. At night, sometimes if you're taking long exposure shots, you'll get a picture like that. That's all the tungsten lights reflecting off the buildings and mixtures of tungsten and obviously LED downlights. So I find it best for a night shot. You probably want it at about, I always go about 400-200 in the temperature ranges, because it really, mixes up a bit. Tint, you obviously don't need to worry about, because you can see, unless you want something cool like a disco strobe effect going on for no reason, which won't actually affect the picture at all. Just keep -1's fine. Alright, you want to adjust your highlights and your shadows. That's where you want to keep it. Now, this is a rule that people have come up with, that they say, oh, the best way to edit is keep those like that and work with your exposure and contrast in your whites and blacks. Honestly, you can do that, but I tend to adjust things accordingly. As you can see, the exposure changes here, but to fix up that little misty haze, you want to actually adjust your contrast to fix the picture. Yeah, you can do that. A lot of people do it, and it is nice. But we'll just do this way, but I usually like to adjust highlights and shadows together as well. Our whites, as you can see, affect the whites in the picture, so the lights are getting brighter. So we want to take that, we want to try to stop that brightness of the light, so we can take that probably about down there. It's not really going to do much past that level, because we're bringing it up more rather than down. But you can see our little up in the corner, our little graph is changing. You can see that it's overexposing way too much of this whites here. So that's a bit of an issue there. So we need to bring that down right down here. Okay, so let's, I know we don't really want to affect our lights much here because it'll overexpose it way too much. So let's just maybe take it up, I don't know, maybe just take it to 30. You can manually adjust it here, which I like doing. And now the blacks, you can see blacks is absolutely doing the complete opposite of what white's doing, as you, obviously. But look at it shifting on the scale up there. So we don't want too much, because if you see we do too much, that scale comes back. Now, if you don't want to see all this blue stuff and you want to see how it looks normally, just remove that. But anyway, so let's adjust the blacks here. But as you can see, as we get lighter, as the image gets lighter, the more kind of noisy it looks. Now, this picture was not shot at a very high noise level. You can see 200 ISO. Now, that shouldn't be enough really to produce noise unless it's got overflow from the from the f-stop. But it variates, honestly. It's not to do with that and that. It's just a mixture of things. You know, lights reflecting back into the back into the camera, and it messes with, it messes with, you know, what you're looking at. So the whites we can take there. The blacks will bring down. So that's at a 0. That's a 0. So we want to maybe take that down a bit less. I know it's cutting into the boats there, but we want a solid picture. We don't want too much noise to be seen. So I'd say about there. That's a good one. Go to saturation. Obviously the same thing. No saturation. Right, 0. Let's set that to about, I don't know, 5. Let's come down here. What I want to do now is just sharpen it slightly. We can do more sharpening in Photoshop after. Go to noise reduction. You can see when we noise reduce this, look, it looks amazing, right? Looks amazing. But you are losing so much detail. For example, if we've removed, look how much noise is in that picture there. So that's without noise reduction. If we just take it up to, say, 25 for this, because there's not much noise to begin with, maybe let's go 40. Yeah, contrast, I don't really know too much about those, but details, how much detail I think is in the noise which is kept, and color noise, you can also tell the difference between what's color. This red particles and stuff in there are color, there's not too much color noise. So that looks better already. This is what I think this is. The cities have haze. It's obviously not right, but this is how I like to think of it. Haze is how hazy your image looks. You know, you think of smoke or city haze, you know, that's what happens. But I like to reduce that just a little bit. I'm still not too sure what that is, but I do it anyway because I'm cool. So this is what I want to show you, right? So I want the bridge just to pop. I want that image to pop. I want the bridge to stand out. I want everything else around it to kind of be so obsolete. Maybe just the bridge and the lights to be the best thing in the picture. So I'm going to click this little tool right here, which is the radial filter. And I'm going to draw a radius, any kind of radius, and I'm going to stick that right over the bridge, exactly where I want it. Now, try not to overdo it, but I'm going to overdo it for this one. Usually the best thing to do is maybe just get around the edges of that bridge, like there. Now, well, maybe take this in a bit. Now, this is where it gets fun. As you can see, everything around, if I adjust these, changes. And it's like, oh, what do I do? You know, this is not what I want. So if we want to affect this little area here, we're going to go ahead and click this Invert Mask. And I would set the feather to about 90 or 80. Now you can tell what the feather does. For example, if I was to click this Show Overlay, and you can see that, that's really solid color, and feather kind of smooths it out. So I usually go about an 80. But now, if we adjust exposure here, You can see what it's doing. Okay, that looks pretty cool so far. So highlights and shadows. Right, so now we're equal. Now, if we want to get the effect we want, we're going to get the exposure up. Move this across, bring our exposure in. Now it looks brighter there. We can take the exposure down to a precise moment. We can fiddle with our whites, make it kind of luminous. Our blacks as well. Maybe we can bring that up there rather than down there. Let's rotate that a bit. Get that in there. Let's adjust our exposure. We can get our contrast in. Maybe a bit of clarity, dehaze it a little. Saturation, let's take that down a bit so it's not as kind of pumpy. Sharpness, we can bring up. We can change our temperature too, if we really wish. And then I adjust these. Yeah. So if we can bring our contrast there, it's kind of just making this be the main focus. So sharpness. Now if we go done, there we go, so that's kind of popped out the bridge here. Now we want to pop out this. So let's go ahead and make a sphere. So you just got to be very careful with what you do, because if you overdo it, it'll look very dorky, and that's what I'm doing right now. But it does change the image quite a lot, quite substantially, and it can kind of work in with it. Yeah, that's a lot better, I think. Maybe not as bright, but let's take those whites back down. But pretty much there you have it. So now if we do an image, this is the image comparison. You can see the difference between the two images. So in here you've got there's your difference in, I mean it's still a bit grainy, but when you zoom out you can't see that grain, but you can see the difference in light. And it kind of keeps the bottom bit darker as well. So it brings more focus in on your main subject area. I mean this would preferably be a little bit too light for my liking, but that's kind of a little bit of a tip. Right, guys, I mean I hope that helps. It's a bit of a kind of a weak way to do it, but there is a lot of people out there that can smash through it. I mean look at this difference here as well. I mean our shadows go over a bit, but honestly you don't really want to worry about too much about shadows, because you can always bring them back. Majority of the time there are times when shadows cannot be brought back, but it can always work too. Like the shadows are just these here, and if we remove this, like that's no different. You don't really care about that. That's just nothing. That's literally this light, this massive part up here. That you don't need to worry about that. If it's the whites though, you can see the whites are coming up quite a lot here, and that's all that. That's saying it's all careful, you know, it's getting a bit overexposed in the blue and purple ranges here. But, you know, that's the effect we wanted, that's what the effect we got. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, message me in the comments. You know, let me know. If you enjoyed this, subscribe for more. I'm going to be making a lot more of these videos. Go check out my vlogs as well. They're quite entertaining. You know, I walk around the city. I go on road trips all the time with my wife. We go traveling. It's lovely. It's a great thing. Most of them are instrumental as well. There are ones where I'm actually out and about with my camera gear, talking about my camera gear, taking photos, letting you know which lenses I use and whatnot. But it's great for beginners as well if you want to watch along and see how it is. There's a few video tutorials which I'll put on a card on the screen now. You can check out if you're interested. Thank you for watching, guys. Until next time, I hope this really helped you out, and catch